Thank you for watching Murder, Monsters, and Mysteries. Today we take a look at the Hat Man. Dark apparitions that reveal themselves while you're sleeping are scary enough. But of all the shadow people that visit you at night, the Hat Man may be the creepiest. There are different classes of shadow people, and this terrifying man with the hat is among them. He's been seen all over the world. And according to people who have shared their sightings, the Hat Man has been around for a while. But what are shadow people? It's certain these dark apparitions aren't human, with all kinds of theories about their existence, from time travelers to aliens. No one really knows what they are or where they come from. The Hat Man is believed to be one of them, and although he's extremely mysterious, many witnesses claim he's over 6 feet tall and always wears a hat. According to creepy stories about the Phantom Hat Man, he appears during times of emotional turmoil or distress, and will often observe you as you sleep. But who is the Phantom Hat Man? We may never know, but if you ever find him standing at the foot of your bed, staring at you, maybe consider yourself lucky? He's said to wear a fedora or a top hat, a trench coat, and have glowing red eyes. According to people who have seen him, he appears as a completely dark figure like other shadow people. The biggest difference is the hat, which appears as either a top hat or a fedora. Most people are unable to make out his other clothing, but the ones who do report seeing an old-fashioned style, a trench coat or cape, and he always appears to be at least 6 feet tall. His face is usually indistinguishable, but some who he has visited claim that he has glowing red eyes, which separates him from other shadow people. There are also some reports that the Hat Man carries a gold watch attached by a chain to his belt, and he will occasionally look at it. Some people have even claimed that the Hat Man has attacked them. People who tell those stories talk about being jumped on or choked, and they've experienced burning in their chest or tingling in their scalp. Shadow people are said to often do this, but most of the time, the Hat Man is just happy watching. According to eyewitness accounts, he tends to stay longer than other shadow people, though. And he's also been spotted watching people in the mirror, bending over them while they sleep, or just hanging out in the corner with a smile on his face. I'm not sure which is more scary, being attacked by the Shadow Man in the hat, or just having him stand in the corner of your room and smiling at you as you sleep. Witnesses also claim that he has a more solid form than other shadow people. And while those shadow people tend to disappear when it's time to leave, the Hat Man is constantly seen walking away, even heard audibly his footsteps on the ground. In many of the cases, the Hat Man seems to be hanging around areas where there are negative emotions taking place. Households that have experienced domestic abuse, fighting, or depressed family members. Some people believe the Hat Man is a demon sent to bring those who are about to die to hell. Others think he's just demonic. There's a famous story of a German soldier who talked about witnessing the Hat Man. He asked who he was, and he was told, Scratch, an old nickname for the devil. Another story of the Hat Man comes from a suicidal man who woke to find himself in the hospital after an attempt, and the Hat Man stood close by. According to the suicidal man's story, once he woke up from his attempt, the Hat Man was standing there in the hospital at the foot of his bed. And the Hat Man spoke to him and said, I almost had you. Usually a Hat Man sighting begins with a feeling that you're being watched. And apparently the Hat Man has a heavy gaze. Many have claimed to notice a dark energy emitting from him, and have said that they immediately knew he was extremely evil and likely wanted to kill them. Some witnesses claim that the Hat Man enjoys their fear and feeding on it. It's possible, however, that since people who witness Hat Man are usually already in a fearful state, or angry or emotional state, their emotions are so charged that maybe it's drawn the Hat Man to them. Or because that's when he's visiting them, that's why they attribute him to so many demonic features. But he actually appears in many different situations, and occasionally, he appears to several people in the same family. The Hat Man sightings are worldwide. Every culture across the planet has people who have witnessed the Hat Man. In 2001, the subject of shadow people was first introduced on Coast to Coast AM. After the broadcast, many people sent in drawings of what they had seen and shared stories about their own experience with shadow people. Author and strange encounter enthusiast Heidi Hollis noted in 2008 that there was a commonly seen shadow person she named Hat Man, and this creature has been witnessed all over the world, as said earlier, which no one expected. No one expected so many people to have experiences with Hat Man, but the similarity of people's stories has given the dark, creepy man a lot of popularity and more credibility. A quick search of the internet will find you many stories involving sightings and encounters with this creature. Like other shadow people and the old hag, the Hat Man is most commonly seen when people are suffering from sleep paralysis, which is a disorder that scientists believe may be caused by a disturbed REM sleep cycle. People who experience this physically harmless but psychologically terrifying experience are fully awake but unable to move. They may also have hypnagogic hallucinations as they are trapped between being asleep and being awake, and they might see things like shadow people or the Hat Man. These hallucinations can be quite scary and even more terrifying when the person experiencing them is unable to move. Scientists have no explanation for why so many people see the same creepy apparitions when they are in this state. It's one thing to explain sleep paralysis, but how do you explain that everyone that suffers it, or a large percentage of them, witness these shadow people, or, more particularly, the Hat Man? And now for a brief commercial break.
I'm telling you, something is going on.
Calm down. Let's think about this rationally. If there is a maniac running around killing people, don't you think the officers you talked to earlier would see that? They're trained to look at this type of scene, analyze the evidence.
Or they're suffering from cognitive dissonance.
Let me write you a prescription.
Are you okay, Doc? You got some blood trickling.
Oh, I poked myself earlier.
Don't bother, it's okay. I'm fine.
No problem. Looks like our time is up. Go home, get some rest, enjoy the weekend. This will all be over in a couple of days.
I will. Thanks.
Many witnesses of the Hat Man began seeing him at an early age when they were children. He can appear at any time of day or in any location. Many encounters people recount have taken place in bedrooms, with a large amount of sightings occurring in basements. Why this is the case isn't entirely clear, but since many basements are dark and scary to begin with, it does make sense. Many encounters with the Hat Man take place when the visited person is about to go to sleep, has just woken up, or is asleep. Many witnesses started seeing Hat Man when they were children. They kept the stories to themselves for many years because they were embarrassed. They didn't want people to think they were crazy or being irrational. But when programs like Coast to Coast AM talk about these entities, That's when it encourages other people to come forward as well. The following is from a former Reddit user. Strangely dazed. My now ex-boyfriend always talked about these shadow people. He saw the top hat man and the man in the fedora. He always said that the top hat man came to warn him of awful things that were going to happen. I, of course, thought he was a psycho and dismissed it. 2 months later, I started seeing the man in the hat next to our bed. He would lean over me. Anyways, my boyfriend ended up violently assaulting several girls. I read somewhere that he may show up if you are in the presence of an evil person, or a dangerous environment. I also saw a different shadow man in the middle of the road in the car at night with him. I explained his appearance to my boyfriend. I explained seeing them together. He explained immediately that this man came when death occurred. Ironically, I went to a doctor's visit the next day and was informed I had a miscarriage the previous night. Since we broke up, I haven't seen shadow people since. Reddit user, their eyes upon you, shared this. I saw him at 18 years old in my room after a particularly traumatic experience. I woke up at an incredibly late hour, probably 2 or 3 a.m. I didn't check, but something was off. I was speaking in a language I've never heard. I was speaking to what I can only describe as a young girl, or something with the body of a young girl. Perhaps 14 years old, in a dress. I couldn't make out her features, but I could make out her eyes and her mouth, which could only be described as sharp-looking, like a human piranha or something. She was whispering something in my ear, and I was replying myself in a strange language. But it wasn't just the shadow girl. My bed was surrounded by tall, dark figures which I could not make out the features of. Perhaps 4 of them, not counting the girl. They sat motionless and watched me, but the most striking figure was a tall man in a wide-brimmed hat, standing in the corner of my room. I felt as if he was amused. No, more amused than the others. Each time the girl whispered in my ear, I would let out a reply which I didn't understand, and the man in the hat would be delighted. You'd think that a person would be scared of this sort of encounter, but it felt familiar. I felt rather warm, as if I was surrounded by old friends or family. There are many theories regarding what shadow people actually are and why we see them, and the Hat Man may have a similar explanation. Perhaps he is an interdimensional being, visiting humanity from another dimension and only partially visible since he's on a different vibration than we are. He could also be an astral projection, the shadow of a person who's currently traveling out of their body. A demon is another possibility, based on all the negative feelings that people get when they're around him. Other theories about the Hat Man include aliens, time travelers, and ghosts, as well as just crazy witnesses with wild imaginations. Currently, there is no scientific method to test any of these, though. So for now, the Hat Man remains as inexplicable as he is terrifying. What do you think, guys? Have any of you witnessed the Hat Man, the old hag, or other shadow people? I haven't seen any myself, but my girlfriend does suffer from sleep paralysis, and she has described the feeling of the old hag pushing on her chest in moments where she's unable to move or call out. Thank you for watching Murder, Monsters, and Mysteries. If you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe, as we'll be uploading more regularly.